Hello, welcome friends to Google Cloud Next Extended. So today is a week one. We are doing week 9 week event, and today is with Romin Irani, who is a partner engineer at Google, and he will take session on recent features of Google Cloud and what next to expect from the Google Cloud next. And over to you, Romin.
All right, thanks, Mayur. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday afternoon. I'm going to try to keep it as interesting as possible, and I have a lot to cover because what I'm going to do is take you through literally 6 months plus of features that have been announced on Google Cloud Platform, and then moving forward, just I'm going to give you a glimpse of how you could best make use of Cloud Next on Air, the whole platform that's there, which over the next 8 to 9 weeks will be going through various announcements and how you can take maximum advantage out of it. So since we've got a limited time, let's get going. So this is going to be the agenda that I have for today. So of course, I'll take you through a tour of recent GCP announcements, and I've put a sort of a star next to recent. The primary reason for that is that I might go literally into December 2019, Jan 2020 onwards into various product services and lines. Plus, I won't give you a glimpse about what's coming up over the next 6 to 8 weeks because that would be announced week by week as per the Cloud Next honor schedule. But I'll tell you how you could sort of register for whichever be the workload or solution pillar you might be interested in. So let's get going on this. So first up, right, before I sort of break down into different areas, I just wanted to give you a glimpse about when we're talking about Google Cloud Platform, right? It sort of has solution pillars into different areas, which you see over here. So it's not just about that we give you some compute or infrastructure, but basically solutions that go across all of these pillars that you're seeing, whether it's to do with just core infrastructure you may need, or things around databases, data analytics, what we are doing around security, AI, ML, so on and so forth, right? So the next, 30, 40 minutes, what I'll be doing is I'll be going through some of the features that I thought were interesting enough in each of these areas, right? So it's not going to be in any particular, order of importance or liking or something of that sort. It's just going to be like, I went through literally 100, 150 odd announcements. I've sort of removed a few, so apologize for that. But I just thought I'll put together a few that would be interesting. At the same time, not everything that I talk about might be something that's like new, right? So sometimes I might just give you a little bit of background before I sort of talk about a feature or a solution pillar or two. So having said that, let's set the ball rolling on this, right? So first up, infrastructure, right? I mean, that's at the end of the day core, right? But to give you a very quick glimpse about the different, regions in which a Google Cloud Platform is available in. So you must have seen this, but just to reiterate over here that we have our services available across multiple regions in the world, different zones that go into each regions and so forth, network edge locations, etc., etc. The thing for this audience, which might be of interest also, is that we have currently a region in India which is based out of Mumbai. But if you see over here in the coming soon, section, there's also a Delhi region that we announced and should hopefully go live, sometime in next year. So once again, another view of the infrastructure that we have. This is literally the same global, infrastructure that powers, all the other consumer apps also, ranging from Gmail, YouTube, and other apps which you probably use on a regular basis. But the same infra which you see over here is available to you when you deploy your apps on Google Cloud Platform. So again, this gives you a glimpse about different regions, different zones, etc. And you can even see within India, we have the one in Mumbai that's live, but an upcoming region that's coming up in Delhi. Now, the thing to note is often you might just have a question whether do we have all our services present in all our regions? The answer is probably not. So I would suggest that if you go to the regions page in Google Cloud Platform, you will see that in which particular region, which services are available. So just make a check of that because sometimes locality is important. That's why I'm kind of showing you over this, that go into a region, go and check out which services are there, including where your data should reside, because that's increasingly getting important for customers. And so to summarize, right, this is probably the best private network that's out there, which is seeing year over year terrific amount of investment, and it's only going to grow. Let's get to compute, right? Because at the end of the day, what you want is probably other services which are built on top of it, but sometimes you just need pure compute, the virtual machines. So what do we have there in terms of some of the announcements which we've done? Before I get to it, it's important that I just reiterate that from compute or virtual machines types, we have it available across all these areas or workloads that you may want to run. So whether it's compute optimized, memory optimized, or even the recently introduced E2 family type, which is gives you much more price performance per price basically. So depending upon what you want to do, depending upon the kind of workloads you want to run, we've got all the combinations in terms of vCPUs and memories that you can choose from. But having said that, right, now what's more important is what I'm going to start iterating next, right? Which is I would like you to go back with a message at least about the virtual machines as follows. So the previous slide talked about the different VM or the machine types which we have, which is a combination of cores and memory. But we do not lock you into any specific machine type, even if you have to sort of upgrade to a much more powerful combination. We don't make you jump to the next size. So literally, what we have, what you're seeing over here on the screen is custom VMs, or you can say custom virtual machines or machine types. You select the amount of cores and memories that you want so that you precisely get what you want, and thereby it also translates into significant cost saving. This is very unique to Google Cloud. Precisely select the cores and memories that you want. But this is not all, right? Let's start talking about the other things. Preemptible VMs. I'm not sure. I mean, this is not new, but what I want to just highlight is increasingly you can save a ton of money by simply choosing preemptible VMs. These are VMs, simply a check mark at the time of creating a VM, which if you allow us to take it down once in 24 hours, especially suited to data workloads, right? Whether you're running it behind a cluster, etc. This straight away gives you a 70% off the list price. Apart from that, right, when it comes to discounts, we've got anyways all of these things also. Nothing new there, but just reiterating it. We let you select different CPU families too. GPUs and TPUs, there have been several announcements over the last 6 months where we've continued to invest into other, CPU families, as well as, reducing our price on some of these so that any kind of compute intensive workloads, you can actually choose these. At the same time, TPUs, tensor processing units, these are, very specific to Google Cloud Platform, especially for machine learning workloads that you may have. Sole tenant nodes, if you want to bring your Windows workloads over to Google Cloud, but you are still looking at bringing your own license, we continue to provide this, sole tenant nodes, so you can have this and as well as, be compliant vis-a-vis your Windows licenses. We recently also introduced an OS patch management service. So should you want to do it across a fleet of VMs, you can actually use this service for that. The next couple of things which I'll be talking more about is if some of you have been following the whole, announcements that happened in the first week of Cloud Next, you would have seen that we talked about two things over here: shielded VMs, confidential VMs. I'll come to that in a while. But primarily, our whole objective is that we have taken it to the next step via confidential VMs, where it's not just about your data being encrypted at rest and in transit, but even within the VM in memory, the encryption is used. So we're just taking it to the next level from a security perspective. I'll talk about these two in a while. So we'll move on from the infra part into the identity and security section. Here, let's talk about the two things that I was mentioning, which is shielded VMs. Shielded VMs we introduced a few months, back. Sort of, it's now there available right across our VMs. These are turned on by default for everyone with no additional charge. So as you see over here, right, we are bringing the best in features from a ensuring that your VM is hardened from various aspects which you see over here, whether it's to do with, any kind of exfiltration or even any kernel compromise. You see some of these points that we are taking care of. It's not just for the, compute engine VMs that you may provision, but even right across Google Cloud Platform now, when it comes to services like Cloud SQL, GKE, and others, these by default are beginning to use shielded VM. So you already get that layer of protection now with the VMs. We want to take it to a step much further. So last week we announced in beta what we are calling confidential VMs. And this is part of our confidential computing portfolio. The idea over here is that we all know about data at rest and data in transit that's encrypted, but we are taking it to another level, which is in memory itself, right? Data is encrypted. So these keys are basically generated within that hardware itself, applies to a particular CPU family. But at the same time, this whole thing, if you notice, the building block is the whole shielded VMs that I talked about previously, right? So again, available in beta. All you need to do as per this, particular animation which you're seeing over here is about at the time of provisioning a compute engine VM. If some of you are aware about that, you go to the compute engine VM instances, create, select a few things, and then when it comes to a particular checkbox, you see the confidential VM service. Simply, enable that. DLP, the next topic. I mean, this is an interesting one because increasingly we are seeing, customers as well as consumers, right? When it comes to moving data to the cloud, right? Especially, let's talk about enterprises which have to move to the cloud, right? So let's get into the word of what DLP and all that means. But really speaking, right, it's about three things that you see over here: compliance, security, and privacy. By compliance, what we are saying is just make sure that the data should not be anywhere outside what it's supposed to be. Security is all about the fact that you probably have got data saved somewhere, maybe in the cloud, but you want to make sure that inadvertently you not sort of expose that data for access to the public, right? And third is privacy, whereas you've got your data that's there on the cloud, but maybe it contains, personally identifiable information, PII data. So probably you want to see that, hey, when it comes to a certain set of users or maybe a certain unit in an organization, if they're trying to look at data, can we do something by which, maybe they cannot see the names or maybe the phone numbers or anything of that sort, right? So what we have is that we've created what we have called info types. We keep on adding to that increasing list of, already 100 plus predefined info types you see there. What are info types, right? So think of info types as a few examples which I've shown over here. So whether it's credit card numbers or emails or phone numbers or even other tax identifiables, just think of anything that could identify a particular record or a set of data and link it to a particular user, right? So the way this works, and this works within our umbrella of security products, is something of this sort. For existing data sources which you have on GCP, the ones which are shown is whether your data lies in BigQuery, whether it's residing on cloud storage or even in data store. So all you need to do is what you're seeing in the middle section, set up a job, right? And say what sort of data sources you want to scan for sensitive data. Maybe you could link it up to the predefined info types that you want to detect. Or, we even have a way by which you can extend it and add your own predefined types too. And then choose an action what you want to do. It could range from just maybe raising some alerts or maybe goes onto a dashboard, a report, and so on and so forth, or drives other downstream applications, maybe via integration with things like PubSub, etc. So it's as straightforward as that, right? Identify the data source, maybe look at our predefined info types you want to check up on, and it gives you back the results. So DLP helps in both ways. It can even help in maybe just identifying. That's your first way you could start an audit or see if you're compliant or not. And maybe you can even take a step further by doing redaction, which is probably mask it out and things like that. Cloud Armor. People often ask us, do we have any way by which you got some web applications, hosted on, GCP? Do we have some kind of a DDoS protection, out there? So the product here, often it gets lost among all the announcements, is Cloud Armor. So this is our web application firewall. and DDoS mitigation service. Of course, it applies to the typical rules that you would get used to when it comes to a web application firewall, whether it's to do with SQL injection or cross-site scripting, so on and so forth. The thing I would want to point out over here is that it's not just about your applications which you could be running in Google Cloud Platform, which you see in the top right diagram. You can even use it for a hybrid kind of a scenario. So you could have your an application that's running maybe in your data center on premise or even on another cloud, and maybe use it together with this, right? So this is our solution in case you've got kind of web applications running and want to prevent a DDoS attack, as well as set up your rules about who could access it, etc., etc. Again, keep in mind that all the services that I'm talking about, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritties of each service and what's the pricing and so on and so forth. But keep in mind that most of these services, they would come with a particular price with the details at the pricing page in terms of how to use it, etc. Some of them might also come with the respective free quota or a certain limit that it will allow, beyond which there'll be a certain charge for it. Beyond COP, another identification product, and this is interesting, right? So, I mean, the way we look at it is that traditionally organizations have been using VPN, for connecting or allowing outside connections, both from their vendors, from their users or partners, etc., into their backend systems or even on applications they have on the cloud. What we want to do is we want to simplify that. So this is a product beyond COP, which we have continued to invest over several years, and it has seen significant improvements in the last few months, where we are going out with the whole message. So the idea here is that you may have web apps hosted on Google Cloud, on other clouds, or even on premise, right? How about having a central place by which we can ensure that authentication of users' devices is done? After authentication, it's about applying a set of rule-based policies which will allow access to the application or not allow access. And what are these policies? These policies could be as simple as saying, okay, from a particular geo or an IP, allow the access or not. But it could even go to more levels, saying, okay, this set of users or this group of users, allow them access to only these applications and not the others. You can take it still further by saying that users of, let's say, an HR application should be able to access the web app, which is the HR app, only from Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., something of that sort, right? So the possibilities are endless out there, but the important thing is that you've got now one central place where which you can actually manage this whole identification and authorization for your apps, which could be on any of these three areas, whether it's our cloud, other clouds, or even on-premise. Security command center, we continue to integrate more and more things overall into this sort of a single dashboard, where you can look at multiple things which you're seeing over here. Often this is again one of the things that gets lost in the whole set of announcements, etc. So here what we are saying is we've got one central place by which you can do multiple things, as you're seeing on the left side. It's either knowing what kind of assets I've got, all over, in my GCP projects and resources, etc. The other thing also is identifying the whole DLP thing that I talked about earlier. We can see reports about that over here. We can even look at some of the examples which you're seeing in the screenshot, where if certain best practices have not been followed, whether it's to do with access control, maybe if you see an example even of a weak root password being used for a database, so on and so forth, right? So we have a set of security best practices that apply maybe to cloud storage, to our firewalls, to our IAM policies, etc. We go and start sort of investigating against all the assets that you have. We try and look at all your configurations. We see if there have been too many permissions you've given, things of that sort, and we give you an overall report that can help to, even tell you if your configuration is as per best practices or not. So multiple things go on over here. I've just put a fraction of these, but do take a look at the security command center. Let's go to another area now, app modernization. As I said, right, I mean, I'm not covering any of these things, in an order of preference, so it will just going sort of areas that I'm just picking up one after the other. App modernization. Probably you'll get a hint about what I'm talking about because that's the most we've been talking about of late. But before that, just let me set a context for you that what's the current state of hybrid deployments, right? So obviously one is that most of the organizations have started to use or have got mandated that you must use the public cloud due to various advantages that are there. However, you find that the reality is only a fraction of those workloads have really moved to the cloud. The rest continue to remain on-prem due to a variety of reasons. It could be either related to security or data locality or some compliance reasons. At times it could be we just can't move them or it's too complicated to move them, so on and so forth. Or maybe there's a mismatch about how you develop apps here and how you develop apps in the cloud. So multiple reasons for that. So the fact is that hybrid is here to stay. Thereby, organizations have got a hybrid strategy. They want to understand how is it that they could start using applications both in on-premise, in maybe our cloud, maybe even multi-cloud, right? The whole idea is can they come up with a common way by which they can build, deploy, monitor, and use these applications. But let's step back a bit. It's difficult because if you've been doing cloud development for a while, right, or any organization today, they have multiple questions they want to ask, whether they have to learn a new set of tools, new set of frameworks, new set of services every time they have to move to the cloud, or do I have to retrain all my teams, or how do I consistently build my applications? Is there some kind of a common denominator, right, where things are portable or not, and so on and so forth? So the idea is that if you want to go on to multi-cloud, it makes sense to ensure that these three key things are met. Whether it's a software-based stack, should be built on open source. I don't need to stress upon the importance of open source. And also, right, how could we abstract away the infrastructure, give you higher level building blocks, and sort of, the cloud provider takes care of managing the underlying, storage, network, compute, provisioning, scaling, up, scaling down, so on and so forth, right? So given all of that, our solution to this whole thing is Anthos. Must have heard about it. We announced it in last year's Cloud Next. Of course, been in beta with a handful of customers since more than 2 years. But basically, it's now ready for you folks to use. Also, it's seen significant amount of development. It's probably the most difficult thing for me to have put together as to how many features I can fit into it. So I rather decided I'll just talk about it in little bit general terms. But the idea here is that it's a common, our platform basically in short, that lets you build, deploy, and run applications irrespective of where you want to run it. So we have limited support, of course, on-prem within VMware, but we plan to bring bare metal and other hypervisors also soon. So whether you're running these things on-prem, whether you want to run them on Google Cloud, or whether you want to run it on other clouds, right? Basically, Anthos is going to give you one control plane in order to sort of look at all these clusters in a uniform manner, provision your services, monitor them, so on and so forth. Of course, underlying it, as long as you understand what containers are, the portability that they bring to the table, the standard way that they give us to build, deploy, distribute applications, you know what I'm talking about over here. So given that, right, one thing I wanted to just talk about, in which we've spent significant time in the last 6+ months, has been this whole Anthos migrate thing, where it's a tool set we give you if you've got existing applications, running on your VMs on-prem. You could use this utility actually to convert them and run them into a GKE cluster. So it's a little bit of shift from the lift and shift to the lift and modernize kind of thing. Having said that, multiple other things we've done, right? I mean, these are just bullet points that I'm giving, but obviously quite a few things have happened over here. So on GKE, the Windows Server on GKE, that's gone, GA, general availability. Also, if you've been following news around Anthos, you would have noticed that we've also made Anthos for AWS available. So the multi-cloud thing, as well as that I was talking about, where you could run your Anthos workloads on-premise, on GCP, and now from a other clouds provider, AWS is now ready for use. We've also got Kubeflow that's seen significant enhancements where you could run, ML workflows again across environments, and this is powered by Anthos behind the scenes. If you've been following the news last week, we announced something called BigQuery Omni. I'll have a slide later on that, but this is again powered by, Anthos behind the scenes. So you're going to increasingly see a lot of, Anthos, a focus on that from GCP. For those of you who are not yet familiar with, I would one sort of a tip I could give you is to start getting familiar with the set of services that comprise Anthos, and you'll see a lot of our services eventually when it comes to the hybrid multi-cloud sort of a scenario getting enabled behind the scenes with via Anthos. And obviously, I told you that the Anthos right now on premise is running on or is qualified to run on VMware on premise, but we are also working and we should be able to see releases of Anthos being run or even on other hypervisors as well as bare metal too. Networking. This is again one of our core strengths. So let me talk about a few things that I've seen a lot of articles, blogs, etc., announcements in the last 6 months. But first up, VPC service controls. I mean, you folks might be knowing what VPC is all about. You also probably know about the different way in which GCP or Google Cloud Platform looks at VPC, right, where it could span across regions and still be able to access those resources via private addressing. Now we take it to a step further, right? So think about it like you've got a VPC and you've got a project inside of that. Probably you've got a few resources like maybe your Google Cloud Storage buckets or any other services that you want to talk about. We believe that we are taking security, on your behalf to a next level via VPC service control. And the reason for that is we don't want everything, in a VPC being able to access all of that stuff. So, for example, think about the fact that you've got various Google Cloud Storage buckets over here where you want probably that only a certain project in a VPC should be able to access it, not the others, right? At the same time, maybe you also want to ensure that any unauthorized VPC project, what you see on the left side in the diagram, or even a client from outside should not be able to talk, to that. So what we have done is, by service control is nothing but a perimeter or a boundary around a set of resources that you want. At the same time, you can start creating even rules that say that, okay, if it's this bucket, it should be available only for access to this authorized project and the VPC project, but this bucket should not be even accessible to another unauthorized project. So you could take it to a much wider level. The important thing here is not just context-aware access, which you're seeing, but most importantly, what you see as data exfiltration, where simply you feel that once you sort of authenticated something, and once it's sort of got beyond that perimeter, maybe you're secure enough. We do not think so. You might have hundreds of VMs, and you might want to have very strict rules about what each of the VMs could possibly do. So that's precisely what we're talking about, exfiltration, where again you want much more fine-grained control even for an entire project and the resources that could be under it. So VPC service control goes to a large extent to address that, because different organizations may have different rules around how they would be mapping out these controls. We took it to a level further by saying that it's not just, if I go back, right, it's not just about maybe some VMs and things of that nature, but our key serverless runtimes or platforms which you know about, which is App Engine, Cloud Functions, as well as Cloud Run. What you see over here is that via something called a serverless VPC connector, we are now allowing you or your workloads running in any of those platforms, whether it's App Engine, Cloud Functions, or Cloud Run, to privately access other GCP resources also. So basically, that's what the label down is about. You can privately access internal GCP resources. We've taken it to a further level still, right? I mean, things don't stop here. And the first thing that should be is, are we going to allow all our functions to be maybe accessible from everyone outside? So that's what we are talking about here. So the way it may look a bit confusing, this whole thing which you see on the right, the idea is focus on the sort of a diagram or the vertical stack which you see next to that ingress and egress, right? So those are your cloud functions, right? And now literally, whether it's the egress or the ingress rules, you can now set at a fine-grained level whether they should be allowed outside communication, whether they should be allowed access from outside, or only from resources which are inside. So you see all these combinations where literally you can say that I'm going to write my functions or I'm going to write a cloud function, but hey, I don't want it to be accessible by anyone from outside. It should be available for access only from maybe an application or two that I'm running, let's say, on a compute engine or a GKE. So it should be only allowing ingress from that side. So basically, look at the last option, right? The egress is all VPC only, and the ingress is only for internal. So basically, anything from outside, it simply prevents, but it still allows in and outbound communication for resources which are inside and are invoking your cloud function. So you can see how we are going step by step to ensure that we can meet each of these security and network combination requirements that you might have. Just a few days back, we've also announced that for the same serverless products, right, whether it's Functions, App Engine, or Cloud Run, this is a fantastic release. We've got global load balancing and CDN support now for your serverless compute. So think of it this way, right? You'll get a single Anycast IP address, global, and you can now point to any of your serverless backends. And it's not just about that, right? These serverless backends could be residing in even different regions, not just one single region. So this is done via a concept we have, or what we call the network endpoint group. So precisely here, what's happening is that we already had support for the internet NEGs as well as the compute engine zonal ones, but now we've taken it that for these NEGs to also support the serverless one. So basically, think of it like multi-regional serverless backends still front-ended by a single global Anycast IP address. Service directory, this should be straightforward, but a useful one if you've got tons of services running everywhere, whether it's in a cloud, on other clouds, or even on-premise. You need a single place by which applications can discover, all your endpoints, can even connect to it, publish, and so on and so forth. So that's the service directory product that we have. Just like how you saw Security Command Center, I would like to also point out that we have a Network Intelligence Center also. This lets you do multiple things, takes a look at your entire topology, lets you look at latency analysis, lets you look at connectivity tests, packets, monitoring, everything of all sorts. So take a look at Network Intelligence Center. Increasingly, you will find whether it's Security Command Center or Network Intelligence Center, some of these services should start building into it so that you have one point by which you can go to all of these things. Data analytics. First up, while I said data analytics, the idea here is that I'm going to break it up into a little bit of announcements around storage databases and also around some of our analytics pieces. So storage databases, multiple announcements. Probably what you see over here is a combination of 20-30 announcements in short. But Cloud SQL, our fully managed SQL or database offering, this now supports MySQL, PostgreSQL, and for those who still haven't heard about it, also supports Microsoft SQL Server. We also announced multiple things for Cloud SQL, whether it's committed use discounts, cross-region replicas, and even when you can decide when you would want your maintenance to be done and maybe to be get notified, and maybe you can even schedule that a bit. Cloud Spanner, our global consistent RDBMS, multiple things that have happened over here just to make it easier for complete managed service for backup, restoring, local emulator to test it out, so on and so forth. Often people ask us, when are we going to run Oracle on GCP? I'll not get into that discussion right now, but we have started to announce, Oracle on bare metal. So with some of our technology partners and service companies, we are beginning to make this available in some regions where you have, you run Oracle on bare metal, is fully managed by that provider, but it's got high-speed connectivity tests to your GCP applications also. Cloud Bigtable, one of the points which has been raised by customers is, can we have a smaller, cluster size? So we are allowing that by one of the releases in Cloud Bigtable. Coming back this side on the right for Google Cloud Storage, we introduced a new class called Archive. It does multiple things. Of course, it requires a retention of 365 days, something which you access only once a year. You could even do a bucket lock on that for compliance. Despite it being an archive class, our access is still within milliseconds. File store, if you would have heard of, it's now even gone to a HPI, or the high performance thing. It's powered by Elastigstore, the company that we acquired sometime back. Sometime last year, November, December types, we have begun to announce transfer service. And this is in case you've got a lot of data on your on-premise and want to have tools to start transferring onto GCP, even from other clouds of on-premise. That's the transfer service. Is available right within the console itself. And sometime back, we also announced much larger local SSDs that you can attach to compute engines with a much magnified increase in performance too. Serverless data analytics, just to get to it in brief, right? Our idea here is that while traditionally you might want to do all of these things, our goal at GCP is let's focus only on analysis insights as far as you are concerned, and we'll take care of all the other things which you're seeing over here. So that's been a fundamental premise when it's coming to any of the GCP data products. Having said that, right, I don't want to say that it's just BigQuery or X or Y or Z. I'm not going to go into each particular service that you see over here, but rest assured that we've got all of these. I would say if you look at a complete data pipeline, right from ingestion to transformation to storage to analysis, and of course using it plus orchestrating this whole thing, multiple services are present. So just keep in mind that what data you see in BigQuery, at times it has to go through a lot of things before it even is ready for analysis, and we've got the tools to address all of that. That's the point of this slide. And each of these products over here has seen some improvement or the other, or some particular feature release or not, right? So do check them out. And I'll talk about obviously BigQuery and some other products, but keep in mind that there's an entire suite of products for the data pipeline. So talking about our flagship, or the most one of the most popular products, if not the most popular, Google BigQuery. I'm not going to introduce what it is. Obviously, it's an enterprise data warehouse at petabyte scale. Recently, it also celebrated its 10th anniversary. The other thing which we are increasingly seeing is increasing support for streaming analytics, increasing support for machine learning right within BigQuery itself, right? So the BQML, if you heard, has been consistently seeing a lot of support, including support for other ML algorithms and so on and so forth. But apart from that, many other things have also happened in BigQuery in the last, if I just span out 6 months, and a little bit of the last point, which I want to intentionally point out just in case you're not aware. So from a pricing perspective, traditionally it's been that we will charge you on the amount of data bytes that you consume, your queries sort of consume, etc. And that's on demand. But what we found is that for customers who've been using it a lot, it could turn out to be a drain on the, on their costs. So thereby we introduced something called reservation. So you can actually purchase what we are calling as slots, and you can purchase slots and commit to a certain amount, and then you can distribute these slots even across your organization, projects, so on and so forth. These slots will then ensure that we will not charge you based on the amount of data that you're querying. So just think of it like unlimited query, but you're purchasing the slots for that. The other thing which you see is flex slots. Very interesting. At times you may find that maybe you're running a certain kind of a workload or certain kind of test or analysis, and there might be a sudden spike in your usage. So you can literally again purchase what we are calling as flex slots for a certain amount of period and just pay for that too. So we're giving you all this flexibility. And by the way, we wrote 3 articles at our blog, official cloud blog, which you should read, which tells you clearly what these, what reservation is, what slots are, how you can purchase it, how you can use it across, as well as the whole flex slots thing. Apart from that, multiple things we introduced, whether it's custom IAM and roles, table and column level access control. By the way, BigQuery also integrates with DLP if you want. We introduced materialized views, scripting, stored procedures. And for those who have not heard about this, we still have something called BigQuery Sandbox. So even without a credit card, you could start using BigQuery, of course, with some restrictions, but you can use the public data sets and start learning about it. That's the BigQuery Sandbox. Now, coming to this thing called BigQuery Omni, right? The whole idea over here, and you must have heard it, it just announced last week, is that BigQuery is a flagship product running on Google Cloud, right? Now, the point is that if you look at the fact that your data, right, or let me step back a bit, right? Typically, when it comes to data analytics, from an infra point of view, you keep your compute and data as close together because that's what gives you the performance, and other algorithms are there on top of it. Now, think of it like you absolutely love BigQuery. You are using it on GCP. Sure, there are customers who have their data on AWS. What we are saying is that we will get this compute to AWS. So basically, it's again powered by Anthos, right, behind the scenes. But basically, the compute on AWS, BigQuery, the Dremel engine is going to be running over there, and you can now start using BigQuery, just the way you are used today for your data that could be residing on AWS also. Should you want to sort of use a unified BigQuery, UI to again see the results together, you can always do that, or you can write back your results again on the AWS storage which you want to. Now, one could just say, okay, it's all about BigQuery. Okay, two different cloud providers. I could do it all in a unified fashion. But keep in mind, if you just sort of see the trend, right? This is what we are talking about multi-cloud, right? Where we are sort of making sure that the best of our services will eventually be able to talk to these multi-clouds. So we already announced the Anthos and AWS that I told you about. But this is also taking it a step further, powered again by Anthos. But you can see now that we've got one of our best products out there, which you can continue to use even for your data on AWS. We also announced BigQuery Q&A, an interesting thing. So you got your underlying BigQuery data sources, use your natural language queries, a chatbot-like thing, and actually start, just accessing your data and firing off some queries that you want. Again, this is available currently via partners, but you can see behind the scenes Dialogflow, if you're familiar about our agent building framework that talks to a set of services which is front-ended or supported by the BigQuery API. We've also got the Sheets connector, if you've not heard about. So you've got Google Sheets. In Google Sheets, we have a BigQuery connector. You can actually connect to your BigQuery and stream the results, into Sheets itself. That takes care of even certain limitations that Sheets might have to store those, millions or billions of rows. Let's move on. So we are about 340 hours total. I can use a little bit of more time, so I will actually. So let's talk about some of the things around AI ML now. First up, recommender. I mean, this is going to be increasingly important as we go along. The whole idea over here is that we want to give you recommendations, because at the end of the day, right, one of the things we want you to absolutely do is that while the cloud gives you a bouquet of things to sort of pick and choose from, you don't want to be burnt by just over provisioning things that you don't possibly use. Maybe you don't want to get in trouble by not configuring things correctly, so on and so forth, right? So recommender is, think of it like, of course, all driven by data and other algorithms which we have behind the scenes. But see what it's trying to tell you. So the first step is, maybe we'll tell you about some IAM recommendations. So if you made too many permissible recommendations or things that we believe you should not actually be doing, opening it up to everyone, will point that out to you. VM right sizing, which is about, hey, you provisioned a VM, but we believe you're not using it. You're probably using even less than 50% of what it can. So what we suggest is, you'll get the same performance if you downsize to a smaller size, machine type. So we'll actually actively recommend to you right within the console, and using a live migration technology, we can actually even move you over to that. Firewall insights, very important, right? Often you find during development, we've kept all our ports, etc., open, and it becomes production later. And then, of course, there's grief. So the whole idea here is that we sort of point out to you any areas or any kind of misconfigurations that you might have in your firewall. Basically, principle of least privilege, least access, so that we ensure that only the right folks can access it. What you see later on is things that we are going to start doing. So basically, the recommender family of recommendations, if I may call so, is only going to increase into different areas. As an example, look at the IAM recommendations, where if there are some primitive roles we have in IAM, and also we've got very specific roles too. So you can see how many have been over granted. We point this out to you, and you can accordingly take action about it. Similarly, VM right sizing, right? In this example, we clearly tell you that you are currently running an N1 standard one, but we believe you can move on to a new machine type, which you see over here. So you can actually apply and then let our live migration take care of the rest. So we'll be continuing to see a lot of these things over here. It's part of our whole intelligent cloud, initiative. AI platforms, this is again out there in case you're building any ML pipelines. The whole idea is that you can actually create a robust, repeatable pipelines. These not only just an execution environment for your pipelines, but we've got basically components, standard ones, which you can use. We've also got integration with our GCP services. So, for example, you could literally say that I'm going to have some data in my BigQuery. I'll take that data, I'll create a custom model based on that. I will actually train it. I will see the results. Based on the results, I might have some threshold to say, okay, beyond it, if I get these results, deploy it also for me, and so on, right? So the entire thing actually you can orchestrate together. That's primarily what AI platform pipelines is about. And behind the scenes, again, it runs on Kubeflow on GKE. Multiple other things on AI/ML front. I just thought of putting a few together. Auto ML tables continues to see a lot of traction. We've improved our Python library. We've also explained to you how we are getting some of our results. You can now even export the model and serve it from wherever you want. We've also authored an AI adoption framework recently that you can use to see where in the spectrum your organization can lie and how you can get started with it. Our speech to text API has seen not just support for new languages, but even in areas of speech adaptation, diarization, where multiple speakers could be there, even enhanced models, whether it's a phone person speaking in a phone, or maybe in another kind of an environment. We've got some 3 or 4 such models where you can choose a model at the time of doing the speech to text API thing. Again, it's now we've got support for more languages, locales, as well as these additional models. And it's a given that when it comes to any of your ML workloads, you obviously compute, as much as you can get is important. So we've also announced, the A2 family on Google Compute Engine, and this is precisely for workloads of this type. For those of you who are into Dialogflow, you might have, probably, built a few agents using it, or probably not used it. But the key thing I wanted to point out over here is the mega agent. So this mega agent is like not just about 20,000 or up to intents. I'm not sure who has so many, but still, but the idea here is that you can actually use one mega agent that is front ending several other agents. So you could have an agent that takes care of accounts. You could build a sub agent that just takes care of, say, new subscriptions, or an agent that just takes care of billing. So now instead of mixing all of it together into one big agent, split it up into sub agents, front end it with a mega agent, and the mega agent can accordingly map it to the intents, and then it just breaks up, just like how we talk about monoliths and microservices. Maybe a crude example here, but still you get the picture where you can break it up into different sub agents and front end it with a mega agent. Still more. Uh, those of you who are familiar about serverless, runtimes for cloud functions, as well as serverless containers cloud runs, multiple things have been announced. Of course, for cloud functions, we've announced more language supports and runtimes. You could possibly now start using your favorite JVM languages too. I earlier talked about the VPC and cloud functions, both private cloud functions access as well as internally accessing GCP services, and of course additional regions. I would still say that we do not have support for cloud functions and cloud run still in the Mumbai region, but hopeful of that coming soon. Cloud run obviously is both available as a separate managed service and also as Cloud Run for Anthos, as you know. So basically, it's you could run that even on premise now in the selected VMware environments which we support. At the same time, it's also got some of the things which you know about from a VPC, the global HTTPS load balancing that I talked about, gRPC support it's got recently, so on and so forth. Two other things I want to talk about before I jump into the whole cloud on air and how you could make use of it. So AppSheet, again, this is a company we acquired. So if you're looking at rapid development, the hash no code, sort of a movement, again, you can point to various sources, whether it's Cloud SQL, your Google Sheets, or otherwise, and basically just via some UI which you see, you can literally build business apps which can run in the web, on mobile, and so on and so forth. So give it a try. It's pretty interesting. At times, if you just, by the way, we also got about, I think, 50, 100 such apps already pre-built. So you can literally import it and then customize a few fields. And what you see on the right side is actually a preview where you can start testing it out also. So it's a really rapid application development platform, but an interesting one. Again, at best, something to be experienced. Looker, right? I mean, earlier we had Data Studio, but we also acquired Looker last year and now it's like completely integrated into our platform available. So think of it like a business application platform because it just doesn't integrate only with our services, but as you can see, it's got its own semantic data model, and basically then you can start building other applications on top. So again, it's a magnitude different from Data Studio in terms of its capabilities and how you go about it. But if you're looking at, or if you're familiar with things like a Tableau or BI, then Looker is another product that actually matches, and if not, has features that are equal or if not more. Uh, One thing I just wanted to point out quickly is around our GCP certifications. I mean, often people sort of think we've got one associate engineer as well as things around cloud architect, developer, data engineer. But if you notice in the last, say, 6 months to a year, multiple other exams have come out of beta. So these are the DevOps engineer, security engineer, network engineer, and so on. A few weeks back, we also announced the machine learning engineer beta. So think of all of these certifications which are available to you now. Also, from an SRE perspective, if you've been keeping up to speed, you might have heard about these books that we've released. All of these 3 books available to you at our SRE landing page, available free to read online. So in case you're into SRE or like the whole DevOps thing, then these are some excellent learnings that we've had from running these things at scale that you can use. So finally, I just wanted to point out how you could start taking the or making the best use of cloud next on air. So first up, right, of course it's going to run across 7 to 8 weeks. As you see over here, it started last week, and that's when we had done industry insights and a few releases, but the fun really starts from tomorrow or the next week onwards, where we'll start getting into each of these areas. So as you can see, right, it's not that we'll announce everything in one shot. Every week, as you're seeing, we'll be focusing on a particular area that you see over here, and I'll come to it as in terms of how you can best make use of it. I would suggest straight away this URL which you see over here. That's been created by our DevRel director, Greg Wilson, and he has put together an entire cheat sheet by which you can help navigate it. So I'm just going to come out of this presentation for a moment, and I'm going to take you to that particular URL so you can sort of see what happens and what's there on that. Okay, so what's happened? My machine has gone into a spin, which is fine because everything should not go perfect. Okay, good. Finally. So this is the URL that I'm, or the post that I'm talking about. So what Greg has done is he's made it easier for us to really even understand what's going on. So obviously he's listed out these 8 weeks that we are going to be talking about different things. But really speaking, right, he then breaks it out into what's happening on each day of the week, which is a pattern, the demos which are already ready, and then every single session that we are going to be holding in each of the weeks is actually extracted it out for you and made it easier. So keep this link ready. But I'm going to show you also the actual site so you understand how to really navigate it, because on first glance it looks really complicated. So keep in mind, it's a 8 or 9 week program as you're seeing over here. The first week is already done. So you can literally browse by each week as it happens over here. You'll get all the material. What's more important is go to this Explore tab, which you see over here. In Explore tab, right, I would suggest that the first thing you do is just tap on this Learn link which you see, or the section which you see. What's happening there, right? So literally, you see that at each point you've got multiple things you can do in each week. So suppose the first week says, like for example, if I just go up to this industry insights, or I say second week talks about productivity and collaboration. So in each of the weeks, right, you have either a learning hub so you can learn more about it, or you have a study jam, or you can participate in Cloud Hero, or specific talks by Devrel, or training, and so on and so forth. So let me just point out, in case you want, I mean, the interesting thing is a study jam. So if you just go to that particular section, say for a particular week, right? So think of how best you can make use of your time. Now, if you see over here again, these are each week by week program, whether it's week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. So let's say that you're interested in infrastructure. So it tells you that the program is on 29th of July, 30th of July, and at each of these weeks, utilize this time maybe to participate in the study jam or participate in the hands-on labs. So you will find that it actually tells you that if you are supposed from an infra area, which are the hands-on labs you can do. So you will actually have people who will help you out, etc., so on and so forth. So in each of these sections, go to the respective labs which are there, or study jams, etc., so that you can focus on an area of your interest. Going back, even Learning Hub, right? So even if you explore that now, for each week you will find that if you're interested in, let's say, security, it will tell you how you can join the study jam, how you can prepare for maybe that security certification, how you can look at talks for the security part of things, so on and so forth, right? So think of multiple ways you can navigate this, but the way I would look at it is go to explore, go to this area that interests you, and then accordingly you will see that the dates change, right? So if it is cloud AI, see it's starting from September 2nd onwards. If it is app modernization, the sessions are from August. So sign up for those. Cloud Hero again is completely hands-on, lab driven, etc. So up to you how you do it, but that's how I would explore it. Sessions is just the individual sessions, but as I told you, instead of getting lost over here, uh, you know uh, it was very nicely put together by Greg over here. So you can use this and just see which session you would want to attend. He's actually extracted it out in a simple way over here. The next thing I would also suggest to you is we've already got the demos ready for all of these. So you can actually start seeing it today itself. So whether it's app modernization section, you can see we've got 3 interactive demos and 4 video demos too. So you don't have to wait even for that particular week now to take a look at the demos that are already in place. So the way I would navigate this whole thing is, of course, sign up. That's one. Show your interest in whichever areas. You'll anyway get the notification, but then start exploring it in the area or the topic that you are interested. That will then take you to the respective learning hub or study jam, or if you want to participate in Cloud Hero, and respectively the dates keep changing, which is whichever week it's happening. Yep, that's pretty much what I had from my side. So thank you so much. It's just a fraction of what I could put together. Hope this was useful, and hope it just motivates you to also learn more about GCP if you haven't, and make use of best of Cloud Next. And I've overshot my time well. but I hope it was worth it. All right,
All
so
right.
I'm okay to take a few questions if there are. Yeah. So the first question from Mehul is GCP always have different billing offers depends on usage. So since adding this new features, how project billing occurs? So if I understand your question, uh, nothing fundamentally changes from a billing perspective in a sense that each of our services, at times when the service is in beta, we might not charge for it for a particular period with some constraints, but we will continue to look at it in the same uniform fashion, whether it's a free tier, an always free tier, a particular monthly usage that we allow for free, and of course after that the respective charges. So I would say that from a project billing perspective, it's again going to be based completely on how much ever you use. There are pricing for each of the services available. In certain cases, like BigQuery, which we are seeing a large adoption and now getting feedback, we are also looking at reserving certain kind of slots, etc., that could help to optimize the cost. And of course, at the end of the day, any other discounts, which and where they are from a sustained use perspective, if I'm talking about compute engine, that continues to apply. So fundamentally, any new feature, nothing particularly changes. Each service of ours will come with a price tag, with maybe some free quota, and beyond that, pay per use. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. What is the difference between Looker and Data Studio? And are they used for different use cases or the same? So yeah, let's look at it this way. I mean, Data Studio, which is still there, available for use. It's free for use. Primarily, I would say looks at existing data sources. You have one of the best cases we have seen is you're in BigQuery, you have a button saying explore to Data Studio, and boom, it launches Data Studio and just sets up the connector for you, and then you can start playing around with your dimensions and slice and dice and so on. So I would say if you are hacking up very quick dashboards, where you're okay with the current sort of data underlying structures which are already there, if you want to share it quickly with a certain set of users, of course with the right IAM permissions, Data Studio is probably a quick way to get started with it. Data Studio would definitely have limited, controls or limited kind of charts, etc., or the complexity or interactivity, if I may say so. Having said that, Looker is basically, I would say, I wouldn't want to say that it's like a replacement for Data Studio, but basically it's an entire business application platform. So while it connects to all data services, we've got an entire semantic, your data layer. So this, in a way, can be actually used to create business apps on top of it with Looker. So the range of things you could create, the complexity is definitely much more in Looker. It comes with a particular price tag. There are many other enterprise features, support, etc., that Looker may have, especially for enterprises. So that's how I would kind of simplify it. But if you're looking currently using Data Studio, it meets your purpose. Uh, I think it's fine even that way. Yeah. Part says, any tips for a person who wants to get started with basic cloud on GCP or any cloud platform? So, from any of the cloud providers, whether it's AWS, Azure, GCP, all of them would have their getting started guides, etc. If I have to talk about Google Cloud Platform, we make multiple things available. So we've got quick labs where you can get started with a few, whether you want to try out even something as small as let's launch a VM on GCP. Let's see what the experience is like. Let's see how fast it comes up. Let's see how easy it is to do whatever it is. So quick labs, is our way by which we can introduce you quickly to a certain feature or two. We've also got this code lab, which is written by Googlers and even other external users who create different labs which you can try out. Obviously, you'll need your account to try that. Uh, we have on what we are calling now Google Courses, the original things which you saw on Coursera, whether someone is getting you started with compute, or whether it's GKE, or whether it's data products or AI/ML, we've got entire courses available both plural side as well as now on Google Courses, which were originally there on Coursera. So you could do that too. Each of our documents comes with quick start guides. Try that. Another thing which I found very useful, if you're from an AWS or an Azure background, and if you've got a knowledge of those platforms, maybe one of the things you want immediately when you get started with GCP is that, hey, is there kind of a mapping of services? So I knew it was called EC2 in AWS, but what's the equivalent offering in GCP, right? So we have just go to Google search and do AWS to GCP mapping or Azure to GCP mapping, and you will get basically a whole list of services which are on Azure and AWS and what's the equivalent on GCP. So maybe that's a quick way. Sometimes you're just saying, hey, I'm only interested in these 2 3 services on AWS. I have a project on GCP. Let me see what the equivalent services are. And you could look at that mapping, and we'll help you to just say, okay, this is weird, but now it's in GCP, it's known as so and so. So that's one way you can also get started. So multiple ways. I wouldn't say which one is the easiest. Of course, I mean, there would also be a need to know fundamentally what the cloud brings to the table, how you should use it, how you will get charged. Those things come when you do a project or two and you have a team around who can help you. But yeah, these are multiple resources we have on GCP to get started. Yeah. Any updates on IoT Core from Nirav? Uh, I don't know exactly if there have been any specific updates on IoT Core, but it continues to be a product consistently being used by certain customers. Of course, it's a mixture of not just our IoT Core gateway, but then it uses PubSub and functions and so on and so forth. So you can build the entire pipeline. But specifically, I at least am not aware of any specific updates on IoT Core. That's some homework for me to do.
Nice
Any other
session.
questions?
Thank you, Robin. It was a nice session. I really like many things like sealed VM, DLP, and those things. So,
Sure, sure.
anything you want to share out to attendees?
So thank you, first up, for joining us today. And I mean, from a Google Cloud, momentum perspective, it's been a great journey last 1 2 years. If you've been sort of tracking all the clouds, we are well on track for high growth, as well as we are seeing increasing adoption by customers, including large enterprises. So it's a very interesting time. Some of our certifications are also among the most valued in the industry. So if you're looking to get certified to also get some Google Cloud skills, I think it's a great time to do that. And at any point in time, you need some pointers on how to get started, still a bit confused with getting some direction, let me know. Always happy to help and reachable at my Twitter feed. Thank you again. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Robin.
Yeah.
Guys, it's a nice tour to on a Google Cloud Next, and we have a 9 week series, and this was a 1 week, and Roman was a keynote speaker for this Cloud Next event, and yeah, just like, share, and subscribe this video so you can get more updates about the throughout the 9 weeks. Thank you, guys. See you for today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.